when I'm up and I feel like I'm on top of the world, maybe after the Super Bowl, like my buddies from high school are there to like make a joke about how dumb I looked on the stage to bring me back down to real life.
And then, go guys, go.
Exactly. and then when I, eat kind of like I did in New York, I have my buddies to tell me that, they still love me. During the parade, like to see where that energy like comes from and how many people like love this team and love not just this team, but like all sports teams in Seattle. Like the people here are crazy about sports, and it just makes it so much more fun to go out there and play on game day. But I've just continued to learn, just because we won the whole thing last year doesn't mean I stopped learning. I've made a couple mistakes out there in practice today that I'm going to go look at after this and clean up. So that's what we love about not only football, but just sports in general, like in life, really, if you want to get deep. But it's just, you never stop growing, and you always continue to improve yourself as a human being and as a player. And I think that's just the beauty of kind of taking it one day at a time, which I've always done.
This is great. We have Super Bowl champion quarterback joining the show now. Guy we've been rooting for a long time, and excited to have him on the show. Sam Darnold, what's up, man?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Dude, the last time I saw you I think I saw you at a Jelly Roll concert. It was at the Super Bowl or something like that. But this was a year ago. Yeah, New Orleans. That's right.
Yep.
Is it more tiring to go down and party as a player or go down and play in a Super Bowl?
Dude, I don't know. That week when you're not playing in it, the week of like hanging out and going to, even if you're not really partying or drinking as much, like that week can be a grind, man. Like, you're going to all the events, you're doing whatever it is, Radio Row, and you got like 4 or 5 hours of media. Maybe you got an event with a specific company and you're doing something for 4 or 5 hours, kind of, hanging out with people, which is all great. We love doing it, as you know, and then, you got maybe the night event as well that goes to around midnight or 1 a.m. And then you got to get up at 6 a.m. and do some other stuff on Radio Row. So it's kind of a whirlwind when you're not playing in it. But when you're playing in the Super Bowl, it's, it's just business as usual, which I loved. I loved that side of it, obviously. And, but it had its own little kind of wrinkles when you're playing in it. Like Monday and Tuesday, as you know, can be kind of a grind to get through some of that media stuff. But once you're past Monday, Tuesday, you're down the home stretch and back to kind of normal business, preparing for us preparing for the Pats.
Yeah, I remember thinking like you check in to your hotel room and you never feel alone. You never get a minute to yourself. I don't know if you felt that as the quarterback of a team playing in the Super Bowl, but it's like the normalcy is hard to come by.
Yeah, a little bit. I think for me, at least for my family, and again, like just our media crew that works for the Seahawks and works with us as players, like they do a really good job of being able to like, okay, this is when you got to be on, and this when you have media, but when you have downtime, like you have real downtime. And you're allowed, we go to our room, hang out, make our FaceTime calls, call family, call my wife, do whatever I need to do to just kind of like get some downtime, or even if that's just like sitting on my phone, sometimes like you need to decompress that way. And, I think that's always good to be able to get that time. And I think our team over here in Seattle, the organization, the media team, everybody top down did a really good job of understanding that we needed that as players. So I thought we kind of, for me personally, I thought I got some good downtime throughout the week, especially like Wednesday, going into the game.
Yeah. Sometimes dudes got to plop down on the bed and scroll,
No doubt.
Just get it out, man. You know what I'm saying? Over under on how many times I should say, have you seen a Jets fan this offseason and they said something like, hey, come back, come home, that type of thing. Dude, what do Jets fans see when they see you now?
It's actually so crazy you say that. I was just in the training room getting work done, and one of the athletic trainers was saying how her family friends, she went back to Jersey where she's from, and her family friends are Jets fans, and they like they're like, tell Sam we say hi. Like we said hi to him after a game one time, and I was like, okay, cool. Like they didn't have anything mean to say, but I was like, maybe they didn't just say hi when they were in New York. Yeah. Maybe they said some explicit words that maybe can't be said. But Who knows? But dude, I loved the fans in New York. I really did. Like those fans are so loyal, for just everything that, at least when I was there, like we didn't have the best record. We weren't winning a ton of games. And for them to, I felt like every home game, it was, still really, really loud. And they showed up and they rooted us on, man. And, it's kind of, whatever it is right now, but it was just really awesome to be a part of that organization. Really just the loyalty that I felt from the fan base was real.
The reason I bring it up is because it's just such an incredible full circle story, as you know. Like, you've lived it. I think very few people know what it's like to be you. Really only one person, but, like as far as the changing of scenery, the being left for dead, the expectations of being a high draft pick, it ain't easy. And your story, you've heard this a million times. But it's so cool. And I also think what's cool about it is everywhere you've gone, it seems like you've made great friends and people that really respect you. And, whether it's, Carolina or Minnesota or obviously Seattle, you're forever, you don't have to pay for anything in that city ever again. But it's like, it's cool. You've left a trail, man.
I just paid for dinner the other night.
That's bullshit.
That's a lie.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, whatever.
That's bullshit.
I don't know.
That's
bullshit. The other
dude.
thing is that's great about Seattle. There's a lot of people from different countries. There's a lot of foreign people here, and a lot of those people don't even know who I am, which is
that's wild.
It's kind of nice. But no, man, it's been a crazy journey. Obviously, it's been well documented, and being a high draft pick comes with its own pressures. But there's a lot of pressure that's built up through like the media and all these things that, you have to perform really well as a high draft pick. Like I always, and I've told people this ever since my days in New York, and I still feel the same way. Like the amount of, not pressure, but expectations that I put on myself were higher than anyone's expectations were of me. And I think I've always kind of set that bar high for myself. And that's just, it's easier for me to, and now don't get me wrong, I feel like I was a little hard on myself when I was a young player. I felt like, there were some bad plays that I would make, and it would just kind of ruin me for like a series or two. And that's something that I've definitely learned from, and I've learned some like coping mechanisms to like kind of deal with like if something wrong goes on in a game, how to kind of get back from that. But man, it's I learned a lot. But again, I think just owning it, being like, hey, I messed up, and I was wrong there, but I think also learning from it and being like, okay, I messed up, but I'm not going to continue to make the same mistakes twice. And so I think I really learned that way my first 3 years, and going into Carolina, and then obviously San Francisco, Minnesota, and now here in Seattle. It's been awesome. But I've just continued to learn. Just because we won the whole thing last year doesn't mean I stopped learning. I've made a couple mistakes out there in practice today that I'm going to go look at after this and clean up. So that's what we love about not only football, but just sports in general, like in life, really, if you want to get deep. But it's just, you never stop growing, and you always continue to improve yourself as a human being and as a player. And I think that's just the beauty of kind of taking it one day at a time, which I've always done.
When do you think that stopped for you, the being too hard on yourself? Because, hey, hand up. I mean, definitely, I don't know if it's a thing where if you get picked in the top 5, like that's just the way you operate. There's a lot of expectations. You were a young guy, man. 20 years old when you're drafted? I mean, for a lot of people, it's kind of unthinkable, and you're starting your first game at 21. So, like, was there any one stop or experience that you could attribute to like a changing of mindset?
For sure. I think, well, first of all, I think being a high draft pick, like you mentioned, like you make it that far and you make it to the first round or the first few picks in the draft because we're so hard on ourselves. I think that's like one of the reasons you also succeed, right? Is like you're so hard on yourself, and you lift really hard, and you run after practice. You do all the things that are uncommon that people don't want to do, that normal people don't want to do. And you kind of separate yourself, right? Early in your career, at least for me, like in high school, I was the same way, college, then to the NFL. But I think a sports psychologist that I met with actually before my season in Minnesota put it the best, in the best terms. And I'm not sure if I've said this publicly before yet, but like you get to this point, you make it so far in your career and as an athlete by hammering away on that house. You're building a house your entire career and you're hammering nails, just building the house. And he was like, at this point in your career, like you've developed such a great base and a great foundation for your house. He's like, it's time to start, painting the house and using a brush. Like you need to kind of tell yourself that, you're really good and you deserve to be here. And, you start like patting yourself on the back a little bit more. And that was kind of like a weird, like, I didn't know if it took like the analogy or what it took for me, but that was kind of the weird unlock for me. Like, okay, like, yeah, I do deserve to be here. Like I've played really good football in the league, albeit like not as consistent as I would have liked. But, I think just like sometimes mistakes happen, dude. Like mistakes are going to happen, especially in this league. And I think understanding that and still, being able to like learn from that, but also like I've always been like super hard on myself. And you just said like you've always been hard on yourself. Like that is never going to like leave. That's never going to leave my mindset. And so I think being easier on myself and essentially like telling myself that I'm good, that I'm a really good player. I think that's really helped me the last couple of years to build confidence, but to also like just be able to move on from mistakes or things that happen throughout games and even, throughout the course of a season. That's
so true. Thanks for sharing that. 'Cause I think that sports psych stuff, I wish they had it when I played. It's in the mental side of playing quarterback, it's unimaginable. Another thing is, I think it's so cool that you have been able to get back up and change teams and prove. I think it's an era now where, because of guys like yourself, it's not about necessarily finding the perfect match in the draft immediately, or like quarterbacks, you can find them in free agency. You can find them. You can trade for a quarterback that can change the course of your franchise. You can, a lot of people left you for dead in New York, and a couple stops later, you're one of the biggest reasons that Seattle's got their second Super Bowl. And I think it's cool that you're giving hope to other guys that are getting their second chance. And I don't know if you ever reflect on looking around the league and saying, hey, because of what I did now, this could allow another guy in the door somewhere else and he might get his opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think, people, and even outside of this, like people will come up to me on the street, like whatever it is, like a high school kid or a middle school kid, or even a guy like working a 9 to 5 will come up to me and say, oh, you've been an inspiration to be able to like keep me going. Like just no matter what happens, like to just keep on rolling. And, that's awesome. And, but I think there's been examples of that. Like, I think, other guys have done it before me. Like, before my time in Minnesota, obviously Gino was the backup here for Russ. And then obviously Gino gets a chance to start and he plays really well, earns himself a contract. And then, he played really well for like 3 or 4 years and he's still continuing to play at a really high level. So, it's just like, there's examples of that everywhere, but I think it's just tough, right? Because like you get quarterbacks that get drafted really high, and I just sometimes I think people are really, really fast to like give up on them, especially in this like social media kind of culture, which I don't think is. I think it's just kind of the way things are, and I'm not saying that's like a bad thing, it's just kind of the way it is, unfortunately or fortunately, like it's just is what it is, and it's this. Yeah. We live in a time now of like where TikTok is kind of king and YouTube, like short clips, like these like 20-minute clips of, guys sitting on Get Up or First Take or whatever it is. And they have a opinion about a young quarterback and it just kind of goes viral. And sometimes like that gets back to a young kid or that young quarterback that could affect them later down the line. And I think, it's really up to the player and up to the person to be able to. And you kind of mentioned it before about relationships. Like for me, it was like having great relationships that really saved my career and saved my outlook on just like who I was as a player. Because like I made great friendships and great relationships everywhere I went. New York, Carolina, San Francisco, Minnesota, and now here in Seattle, like I have great relationships and friendships that will last a lifetime. I've kept my really great relationships that I've had with my high school buddies, my college buddies. Like, I have a great relationship with my wife. Like it's those, my family, obviously, like it's just the relationships that kind of keep you going. And I've said it a million times, but like when I'm up and I feel like I'm on top of the world, you know, maybe after the Super Bowl, like my buddies from high school are there to like make a joke about how dumb I looked on the stage to bring me back down to real life.
Yes, and then, go guys, go.
Exactly. And then when I, you know, eat shit kind of like I did in New York, I have my buddies to tell me that, you know, they still love me. So there's a ton of ways to look at it, but I think nowadays it just is what it is, man. Like people are just they're gonna tell you you suck, and that's gonna be the narrative for however long.
I'm not going to make you say it. I'll just say it before I move on to a Seahawks question. When you get drafted high, you're drafted high by a team in the top 5. That team's there for a reason. You know, not to take shots at teams that, you know, drafted you, or, you know, it's going to be an uphill battle. And I don't think people do a good enough job in football of contextualizing performance. And that's not the scapegoat. Maybe you didn't have your best year or couple years in New York, but, you know, I think there's far too many people that see a player's stat line or even watch their performance, and they don't take into account the ultimate team game that is football. And I think there's only like maybe 3 to 5% of the league, and a lot of these guys are position players that I think could thrive in any system on any team. The rest of us are human beings, dude. You know, we're you know, like Justin Jefferson, for instance, you play with him, or JSN or somebody like that.
Sure.
Most players, they need structure around them that helps them. And so I'm not going to make you co-sign that, but you know, I think it's important for people to realize.
No, I think it's definitely important. I think even today, like if a quarterback's struggling, and even let's just say I'm watching film of a certain defense and we're watching a game where a quarterback might have struggled against that defense. I personally, like now, just like understanding more football, and this is all about like continuing to gain experiences. Like I had no experience playing in the NFL, obviously, when I was in New York. And I think, you know, that experience is huge. And I think having that experience, like I look at some of these games now, maybe where a quarterback doesn't play well, and I'm like, oh, like he could have done this differently. You know, like I'm more of a harsh critic now, whereas like when I was even a few years ago, you know, I might have been like, oh, you know, I understand why he's struggling out there, and I still feel that way. But I think it also just comes with a little bit of experience of kind of being like, oh, there was always a way. There was always a way to get out of an issue. Like if you have 2 to the running back, if you get like 2 blitzers to the running back, and now you're hot as a quarterback, like just understanding like what your hot answer is. But it could also be a case where like the coach didn't necessarily coach that up the right way. And so I think a lot of people are quick to kind of point fingers at like, oh, the quarterback wasn't prepared for that look. And it was like, well, it goes both ways, right? Like the receiver has to be on the same page. Like the receiver has to know that the quarterback's hot and he has to get his eyes around. The coach has to be able to, you know, teach us like, hey, on this 3rd down, we could get this pressure that can make us hot. And so the receiver knows to look, and you're just going to hit him hot, and you're going to convert the 1st down. And if not, we're just going to be 4th and short. We could punt it, or we could maybe go for it. So it's just like those little conversations, little details that, you know, I wish I would have covered a little bit more when I was a young player, but I totally, you know, I feel like I understand both sides when people judge quarterbacks, and when, you know, when a guy like myself gives them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt.
From tee shots to game-winning goals and buzzer-beating baskets, make every moment unforgettable with BetMGM. BetMGM gives you access to second chance promos, odds boost tokens, same game parlays, and so much more. Check back every day for new promos and offers to take advantage of. And if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code GREENLIGHT and you'll get up to a $1,500 new player offer on your first wager. BetMGM, make it legendary. Well, I can tell you, you know, Kubiak did a great job last year. You could tell, like, he just what a great coach. And you've also gotten a chance to cross paths with KOC and Shanahan, and I've heard you talk about McAdoo and like getting into the West Coast system in Carolina. But I found it interesting hearing you talk about Shanahan, and forgive me if I'm butchering this, but like he gave you a different kind of look at how to match concepts with coverages that you didn't have before. And I kind of sitting there reading the quotes, I was like, well, you'd think somebody would teach this guy that, like year one or year two, not to throw anybody under the bus, but like, can you speak to the differentiated coaching that you've gotten at different stops?
Yeah, it wasn't to, I think I can just speak on what Kyle did for me and
exactly
that system. And I think also a lot of what McAdoo did, like just understanding, like going back to this time, what year was that? Shoot, 2023.
They run together.
When I was around May in 2023, when I was in San Francisco with the Niners, like being able to understand, like, okay, just because we're running this concept doesn't mean that I'm like, I have to, I read it like 1 to 2 to 3, and then I get to my back. Obviously, like that's what it says on paper, but Kyle would do such a good job of like explaining, okay, like just because it says 1 to 2 to 3, like you can maybe get to 3 a hitch earlier. And he wouldn't actually say this, but like you would see him, okay, you could get to 3 a little bit early because the front side is going to be shut out based on the certain coverage that you're getting. Like those 2 throws aren't going to be good for you. So like just kind of having like a understanding of like what we're trying to attack. And it sounds so simple when you say it, but I think it's also just being able to like go through every single little detail with your coaches when you get to kind of the playbook and talking about certain defenses, because like teams and defenses are so complex now, right, where they're trying to like hide different shells and bring different pressures, that like when you're running the pure progression game, it almost becomes like, yeah, it's a pure progression, but you could be getting to 3 on your first hitch. So it's really like understanding those different nuances that within the play that could help you as the play kind of unfolds.
I was going to ask you, because you're almost 30 years old now, not to remind you, you're like Unk status, dude, but like, what are the trends? You mentioned one, defensively, but like, I remember in year 10 for me, I was like, the game has changed. A decade in the league, like run schemes are different. The game's more horizontal, less gap scheme, power football, like, and things are cyclical too, right? Not to say this stuff's going to go away for good, but like what's changed from a schematic standpoint? What trends have you noticed the most in your just under 10 years in the league?
Yeah. I think the trends kind of go back and forth, right? When I was like my first few years in the league, and it's actually crazy. Cooper Kupp does a really good job explaining this. There's a clip of him on YouTube somewhere. It wasn't the clip like right after the game. I know a lot of people have seen that one, but it's like after a training camp practice, he goes through like the different variations of defenses that have gone throughout his entire career. And I just want to shout out Coop because like he does such a good job of articulating that. And so like I would go and tell people to like YouTube that because he's going to say it way better than I am.
I think I remember the one. Yeah.
But yeah, it was like after a practice one day here in Seattle last year. But no, it's just like it goes in waves, right? I mean, you get like, you get the Belichick kind of style where like you're playing, on third downs, you're playing like more 0 man coverage. And then you can also like disguise man coverage and go to like a cover 2. And then you get a lot of the Fangio kind of like quarters, cover 3 kind of defenses.
Stuff,
which is like, kind of coming back for sure, or has been back now for a few years. But, and then you got obviously the stuff that Coach Mike and the guys are doing here, which is great. It just keeps us on our toes as quarterbacks, and it's so fun it's really honestly so fun during this time, during OTAs and training camp, to be able to like try to dissect and just go through, like continue to go through your progressions, but understand like what's going on and trying to see if you can see it before the snap even happens. And trying to see like all the different tricks, like, oh, is the nickel leverage a little different? Oh, where are the backers lined up? Is the safety is there like a safety that I can maybe key a little bit more than the other one? Or do the corners are one or both of the corners pressed. If one of them's off and one of them's pressed, isn't going to be like a quarter push kind of in like 3x1. So it's like those little fun things to kind of go through in your head throughout this time in the season, going on for me, like year 9, like those are the things that are really fun. And that's where kind of the game and the chess match kind of comes in. And again, like our defense, dude, our players, the guys that we have on defense are so good at understanding like what we're looking for as a quarterback, like in terms of leverage and all these different things. So even today, like they did such a good job of disguising some looks, even in their, I don't even know what install. I don't know if they're like installing it the way that they normally would because they're in year 3 now, but like we're running install 1 and 2 stuff and they're, kind of messing around with different third down coverages. And I'm like, come on guys, like give us an easy look.
You got a new coordinator, but defenses, I feel like in the summer are always ahead of offenses, like even in camp, and you guys are always getting reamed out. Like, what the fuck? The defense beating y'all again. We're like, well, we got less to install, man.
For sure. And with a defensive head coach too, it's,
he's always going to make sure.
Makes it a little nicer because like if the defense does well, then, guys, we had a great practice today. And sure enough, we go in there. And
dude.
Flurry's ripping our ass as an offense, so it's like, all right. It wasn't as good as we thought.
Yeah, you're like, man, what a shitty practice. Coach is like, we're going to the movies, or whatever. So
right.
I want to ask about the Hawks, man, because I just enjoyed talking to you about your whole career, but obviously your team right now is so fun to watch and had such a great year last year. Was there a game that you knew like, hey, we're for real?
Oh, man. It's easy to point to that Thursday night game, right? In against LA, the one we had up here with our crazy uniforms, which I love. I just think they're cool. So that was one. And then, dude, like to be honest, and people might think I'm crazy for this, but the first game against the Rams, I would say when we lost and I threw like 4 interceptions, there was no reason for us to really be in that game, and that was a game where the defense kind of kept us in it. And shoot, I mean, J-My had a crazy field goal opportunity, 60+ yarder, but we still had an opportunity to win the game. And so I think for me, like you want to talk about like painting the house, using the brush to paint the house. Like I was like, dude, we got a really good, I just turned the ball over, 4 or 5 times and we still had a chance to win the game. And so like there's a lot of optimism that goes on there, once that game's done.
I'm so glad you said that because honestly, now in my career, watching you guys play, like I think I said after that game, I go, fucking Sam threw 4 picks, and they go to LA, and they're about to beat these guys, and it's all correctable shit, and you proved it in the next 2 meetings, and I looked at the date of that game, November 16th or something. You haven't lost a football game since before Thanksgiving of last year. Just incredible, and also to beat that team twice down the stretch because they're a hell of a football team just like y'all. I was like, that's a heavyweight fight. What did you? Is that what y'all said on the plane ride back? Was it because after these bad losses, people are shuffling up the aisles and hyping each other up quietly. Is a lot of what was said like, hey man, like we couldn't have played any worse, and we almost beat them.
Yeah, I think that was a lot of the conversation. To be honest, like. I think I kind of went into my own world when I was on the plane. That's kind of I don't take losses too great, especially when they're whatever people want to say. But especially that was one where I could have totally had some control in that outcome if I just had taken care of the ball a little bit better. But no, so that one I was kind of bummed about, especially on the plane. So I don't think I was going to let anyone talk to me unless it was the head coach.
Only Mike.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm watching my show or pretending to watch my show, and I'm just staring at the screen thinking about the game, like a psychopath. I know what you're talking about. But
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's dude, I really did think though that that was a turning point for us, and then obviously to hear one of my teammates EJ talk about our team and myself the way that he did kind of instill the confidence that we needed as a team. Like that was huge going forward as well.
I wanted to bring up the EJ thing because what he said about you, that had to feel like that's just makes my hair stand on end. That's what being a teammate is. That that's what gives you the confidence to press on and say, these guys got my back. Like, how much did it mean to have not only that, but I saw D Law, who's absolute dog, incredible player, texting guys preseason saying Sam's going to get it done. Like, the confidence that this locker room had in you, not just in your worst moment, but all year.
Right. No, it's incredible, man. I don't think I've been around a team like that, my whole life. It's a credit to the kind of leadership and the kind of dudes that we got in this locker room. I mean, and I feel the same way about them too. Like, if they need us to go score 40 points, like we'll go out there and do our best to do that. So that's just kind of that's really how we roll, and it makes it so fun to go out there and play ball with them every single Sunday or whenever we strap it up. But man, it's so fun. It's so fun to play football with these guys and with this group that we have. So it's it made me want to just keep going. I don't know about you after the Super Bowl, but maybe not your body, but your mind. I was like, dude, I want to just keep on rolling. That was the fun part about it, was like what we did every single week. So,
well, it's the best feeling in the world. Why wouldn't you want to go do it again? Like, the parade, how good was the parade?
Oh, dude, it's like more than 1 million people showed up.
Unbelievable.
It was crazy. Have you seen the pictures? Are insane. I've never been a part of anything like that in my life. It was special, and obviously you see it when Rashid returns the kickoff. That first kickoff against the Niners. Like, you hear the crowd, and I've always been able to hear the crowd. And when I was a visiting team coming into Lumen Field, it was like, okay, like, we're going into Lumen, like, we got to have our silent count ready.
Oh.
You understand how loud it is, but to actually, like, during the parade, like, to see where that energy like comes from and how many people like love this team and love not just this team, but like all sports teams in Seattle. Like, the people here are crazy about sports, and it just makes it so much more fun to go out there and play on game day.
Yeah, I wonder if that creeps into the way you guys call games. It felt like to me this year, I think about the New Orleans game and, games like that where you just jump people. But also, like, looking at, I think it was the NFC Championship, where you get a little man indicator with Cup, and then you throw that shot to Shaheed. Mm-hmm. It feels like when you got, and it felt this way when I play y'all twice a year, if y'all fuck around and make one play early in the game, the top goes off the place, and it becomes really hard to operate. For
sure, and it's not going back on. That top's staying off, and the fans get wild throughout the entire game, man. It's so cool to be a part of, and it's like I said, dude, it's an experience that you just, if you haven't experienced a game at Lumen Field, like, that's one that I would add to the bucket list, because that's a special place.
Yeah, definitely. I can co-sign that, even though I took about 15 L's there as a member of the Rams. I mean, we didn't beat them for 8 years, Sam. We beat them my last game, year 8. I was like, okay.
You didn't beat them for 8 years?
Not there.
Oh, my gosh.
No. They had Marshawn and that O-line and all that shit
rolling.
in the LOB. They were awesome. But you guys kind of did the same thing. So, and we mentioned Shaheed. What was the element, obviously, besides just saying, hey, he was fast, that he brought to y'all's offense?
I mean, dude, he's a way better receiver than I think people realize, because everyone gives him credit for like how fast he is and his return game. Like, the punt returns, the kick returns, like he's so good that way. But when people see him run routes, like it's fun to watch, man. Even like routes on air, being able to watch him today, he's just like, he's like one of the more smooth, like catch and tuck guys. Like, he just catches it and goes. He doesn't have to like think. Sometimes you watch a receiver like think, okay, now I have to catch it and now I have to tuck and go. Like, he's just very like, all right, catch, boom, and he's up the field. And I think that's a quality that can be overlooked sometimes when evaluating players. And I think Sheed's got that in spades. And obviously he can take the top off of a defense as well, which helps. That's a crazy added bonus to a play caller when you got a guy with that speed that can take the top off, and we happen to have a couple of them as well. Man,
it's nice to get him in the return game too. Changes everything.
It is. Yeah, when I'm out there on the sideline, especially fighting with the oblique thing going on, the divisional game, and then all of a sudden he takes that one back, I was like, that's a good way to start. Maybe I don't have to throw it all this game. It'll be fun.
Yeah. What about What about JSN, man? Like, what's his superpower? I don't think people fully understand what makes him great. Because he's not the biggest guy. He's not. He's pretty fast, but correct me if I'm wrong. He's not like Tyreek Hill.
No, I don't think a lot of people aren't like Tyreek though.
No, I know. I'm trying to think of the fastest fucking guy. So what's his X factor, dude?
Yeah. I think JSN, man, he's the way that he runs routes, and I've used this a ton, but it looks like he's skating out there. And he doesn't really change levels. So I think he just runs routes at like the same level, and he just kind of glides. And I think it makes it really, really hard on defenders to be able to cover him, because they don't know whether he's about to put it down in the ground and change directions, or whether if he's going to give him a hezzy and then keep going on that same line, or if he's just going to run by him. So I think there's so many different route combinations. And again, this is a great, thing to kind of talk about too with coaching. Like our coaches, especially, Clint last year, and I've talked to Fleury about it already, but like being able to keep guys on the same route stems and keep defenses kind of guessing, so that you're not just like, oh, if he stems at this direction, at the outside edge of the numbers, he's always running this route. It's like, no, he can run 5 different routes off that same stem, and you never know which one's coming based off a certain play or a pattern. So you can't really pattern read the way that they used to coach that. So it's he makes it really tough, man. Long story short, he's a really good player, and he's got incredible body awareness too. I think that's the one thing I have to say about him too is his body awareness, body control. When he goes up in the air to make a play, he knows where he is on the field. He knows when he can toe tap, when he can kind of stay up, and he's also really strong. He's got a really strong lower body that I think a lot of people don't realize.
That's the part that I notice, the base.
Yeah,
like in the spatial awareness. I mean, it's and also you talked about getting in and out of the routes. I mean, Jefferson, same thing. And dude, it looks like he's slowing down, but he ain't slowing down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of the same with both of them. To be honest, it's like they're both kind of running. Like it almost seems like both of them are running at like 85, 90%. And that way they can kind of accelerate and make a play. But it also allows them to kind of get in and out of breaks a little bit faster. And that's something that, Justin, I think that's also, I mean, this is kind of a tangent, but I think that's also why a lot of NFL Hall of Fame receivers aren't they're running 4.5s at the combine. They're not necessarily running 4.2, 4.3s. You know what I mean? So
JSN 4.48.
Yeah.
4.48. Yeah.
Which is still, it's still
just
fast,
blatant for me, dude. That guy's laughing at me here. But for an NFL receiver, some of these, tell me about a walk and talk with Mike Macdonald. Tell me about a walk and talk. What's that about, dude?
Yeah. Dude, it's funny, man. So we started this thing last year around this time in OTAs, where it would just be a random group. It would be coaches included, strengths that included strength staff and other parts of the building, training, not trainers. It would just be strength staff, coaches, and then players. But you would get in random groups. So it'd be defensive guys talking to a random strength staff guy, and then a random coach, and then you got a rookie with a 10-year vet. So it's just random groups, and you would just give a coach a bunch of questions, and you would ask some of the questions, but a lot of the times we would get to tangents on certain things or what makes certain guys click. It would be as as specific as what it takes, what kind of meals are you eating when you go home throughout the week, and what does your routine look like, to also things what does your off season look like? What are you doing for fun this off season? What do you guys like to do for fun?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just little conversations like that we try to do once every 2 or 3 weeks. But you would always mix the groups up, and that would be a 30 to 40 minute conversation, just that group. And it was great, man. I know some of the guys were a little, I wasn't sure a lot of the guys were bought in at first with that, but I think a lot of the guys too, just getting to know some of the defensive guys, because you've been in a locker room, there's so many guys in an NFL locker room, especially at this time in the season. You get so many rookies, and so many guys in the locker room. So like to be able to like spend that little bit of time to like get to know somebody that you otherwise wouldn't, I think is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I mean, it's easy to be cynical about some of these kind of like team building exercises because they
Right.
a lot of them can kind of fall flat. But it seems like Mike's got a pulse on, you know, he's got the emotional IQ along with the, you know, the football IQ. Am I reading that right? He's not like, what's his personality? Yeah, I asked you what JSN's X factor is. Every great coach has an X factor, like in relating to the team. Like, what's his deal?
He is unapologetically himself at all times.
Yeah.
So like he'll like tell a random story and he'll like be telling this story for like 5 or 6 minutes, which in a team meeting, you know, can feel like forever when a coach is telling the same story for 5 minutes. And then everyone's kind of like looking around a little bit like, where is this going? And then he, at that moment when everyone starts looking around, is like, I promise you guys, I got a point at the end. Like, let me get through the story. Because just knowing Mike and knowing his person. Yes. But he's also self-aware enough to be like, I know I'm a little weird and awkward sometimes. And so like, that's the part that I think the players love. And especially me, like, you know, because I am a little weird and awkward too, like in social settings, or if I have to give like a public like speech, you know, that's not necessarily my forte, but like,
or when Marshawn's asking you if you're a ginger or if you're black or white.
Dude. Yeah. He's like, dude,
so damn funny.
He was like, dude, I'll give you the card, man. You can say it. And I'm like, Marshawn, like, I know you're fucking around with me right now, but I'm not saying that. That's ridiculous.
That was unbelievable. Hey, what a great podcast he's got too, by the way.
Oh,
he's a great
man.
dude. But I think leadership, you got to be yourself, whether you're a quarterback or your coach. If you fake it, they don't buy it.
Oh yeah,
you can't lie to a football locker room.
No chance.
Yeah, we're too on the ball, dude. You know. So Sam, I appreciate you taking the time, dude. I know you got a lot going on, and I'm super happy for you. Congratulations on everything, and thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course, Chris. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.